Good morning, good morning, good morning to my moms, my parents, whoever out here is listening in Facebook land. And today I am coming with a very important topic. And I do sometimes discuss this, I have discussed this, on my Facebook profile. And sometimes I really don't like putting, my business out there all the time or my household's business out there all the time. But I do this because I realize that I impact or help so many people when I do share. So what prompted this conversation again really is I had a face-to-face conversation with a person. So a lot of times, most times, we all want our children to be perfect. We don't want to hear that they may have this illness or that illness or this disability or that disability, or even when they grow up, you have certain expectations of them and you expect them to abide by it. So I'm just going into talking about autism or the autism spectrum, okay? Now, I have a son. One of my sons is on the autism spectrum, right? And I'm going to be quite honest. The autism spectrum, which is considered like the high functioning autism or it used to be called Asperger's, but they all lumped it into the spectrum, or high functioning autism, is way different from autism. So let me tell you this right now. I am not an expert when it comes to autism. I'm not an expert because like a low functioning autistic person and a high functioning autistic person or a person that has Asperger's are two totally different people. They may have certain characteristic traits that may be the same, but their functioning is different. I have no clue what it is to actually deal with a low functioning autistic individual or a person that just don't fit into that category of being high functioning or autistic, because that's not where my experience lies. My experience lies in high functioning autism, otherwise known as Asperger's, which they changed the name. So most times as parents, like I said, we do not want to hear that something is wrong with our child or that our child has a certain disability, but sometimes these are the hand that we are dealt, as parents. And instead of getting all upset and angry and being in denial about it, we just need to realize, okay, this is what it is. Let me get my child the help and let me find out how I can learn more so that I can help my child. Like, you definitely do yourself a disservice if something is going on with your child and you don't get them the proper help. That's kind of like children that are born with diabetes. It happens. Some children may be born with diabetes. If a parent don't do all that they can do to manage their child's diabetes, their child is going to die. Their child is not going to thrive. And it goes the same as things like autism or the autism spectrum. Like, it won't be so tragic where your child will die, but your child will be stunted in their growth. They will not grow at all. And just to give you a little history of how my whole world was started, or my whole journey with my son was started. Okay. So my son, I believe he started school at 2.8, right? It was a private school he was going to. And, everything was fine. But at the time, like, it took him a while to get potty trained. He was in a stroller for a long time. I didn't really notice any issues with his behavior. But by 3, a social worker had told me or suggested that I do early intervention. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me do it. At first I didn't do it. I was hesitant. But then finally I was like, you know what? Let me just do early intervention. And early intervention came out to my house. And they did their testing and they found my child to be ineligible because even though he wasn't really talking at the time, they was able to say, like, point to this, point to that, whatever. And he was able to do it. So they deemed him ineligible. And then, life just went on. And I finally put him, I think I had put him, he had a baby to Jersey, and apparently she was not treating him right because he did not want to go. Every time I was taking him, it would be a tantrum, whatever. So then I just heard that she wasn't treating my son good. So I got him into a school, and in the school, it come to find out, he was hitting the kids, he wasn't listening. It was just a whole bunch of things behavior-wise he was doing. And as a parent, like, I'm not an expert, but I know that tantrums and kids just don't last for that long. So I was like, you know what? I think something's going on with my son, because his tantrums were just like, they were just extra. And I'm just like, okay, I know this cannot be life. So I made a call to Dad, and I said, hey, look, I think something's off, and, of course, the whole denial piece was there. And so it's so crazy that same Friday, I ended up getting a call from the teacher saying, hey, we need to have a meeting. And I'm just like, okay. So anyway, I went through the meeting and did all that other stuff. And of course, they didn't have a diagnosis or anything. But in the meantime, in the home, my son was like, it was crazy. Like, he was breaking my dishes. It was constant tantrums. It was hitting himself, throwing himself on the floor. I mean, I went through it, and I did not know what was going on. And so we went on, and then for like his preschool, I believe, whatever it is when they're 4 years old, pre-K, the school decided, okay, this teacher, her child is actually autistic, so maybe this would be a good fit, and she was able to deal with him a little, but it just wasn't meant at that time. So I actually ended up applying for I forgot what they call it in New Jersey, but where you say that there's a concern, you want them to come in and screen your child, and that's what I did. So the social worker was like, oh, you need to make it extra and all of this and blah blah blah. Like, what more do I have to make extra if my child is hitting himself, throwing himself on the ground and hitting people, and like what more? Like, this is the reality that I was dealing with, and so I had the meeting, they found him eligible, and then they started, trying to get some services and like speech and things like that. Now, still not really having a diagnosis. So the day that he graduated from the pre-K, I remember that week he had started banging his head on the bathtub. And I'm just like, what is going on here? So I was like, it was one particular day, the day that he graduated, he bumped his head in the bathtub and had a gash across his eye. And I said, ooh, this is not cool. So I took him to the hospital, whatever. He got stitched up. And then I went to like a child clinic. And I said, look, I need to see a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever the case may be. I need to see somebody. And, we made an appointment, and he had to go get a neurodevelopmental exam, which was like a 6-month appointment. It's crazy. But anyway, the person that was talking to us, she wasn't, she's not able to diagnose, but just based on what she saw, she said, oh, he probably has Asperger's, which, like I said, is high functioning autism, but they changed the name to just put everybody on the spectrum. So, finally the 6 months came, he got his diagnosis of, Asperger's, and, we went on from there. And by then, he was already, did he do kindergarten there? No, I don't think he did kindergarten there. No. By then, I think he, had got his IEP, but it was the end of the year. He started getting his services, yada, yada, yada. So then it was time for him to go to kindergarten. So I put him in a charter school, and I thought the charter school was going to do wonders. Charter school sucked. And it was just so bad. I don't want to get into that whole story right now, but it was just so bad that I ended up moving back to New York because I know that they have excellent services. So I moved back to New York, and he was put like in a class. It was a class with like all of the students that had IEPs. So it was a class of like 28 kids, and it was a class of 28 kids, and he was just there, and he did good for some part of the day when the day was structured, but when everything was all over the place, it just wasn't a good fit. So anyway, they ended up doing his IEP, and that was that. So the next year I got him in a District 75 school. He's doing excellent. He's doing phenomenal. So that's that. So my whole point in just sharing this story with you is to let you know that if there's something going on, go get that help. Do not stay in denial. And yes, your child is still perfect. You know, I know you see in my title, we all want our children to be perfect. My child is perfect. My child is perfectly fine, you know? So don't think that because your child has a disability or has an illness or whatever the case may be, that they're not perfect. They are your children, and your children are perfect, you know? And that's just that. So what happened was yesterday I was having a conversation with a parent, and because they had their children in childcare, and they was the childcare provider was complaining about how the child is always crying and hitting people and not behaving and yada yada. And, you know, I didn't say, you know, maybe your child has this, because I'm not in the business of diagnosing, you know, other people's children, because like I said, if a professional can give you this news and it's deemed as like bad to you, then who am I? Just a regular person. So I said, you know what? Maybe you should, you know, try early intervention services, you know, and just see what they say. And the person, she was open to it, but I could see the concern in her face. So, you know, she actually took my advice, and she did early intervention, and they're like going through the evaluation process and yada yada yada. So even though like I said, I don't like to share my experiences a lot, but if it's to help the next person, I'm gonna do it. And I can see the concern in her face. So I had a talk with her, and I said, look, this is my experience. This is what I went through. And, you know, it's nothing wrong with, you know, just having an early intervention come in and see what's going on, because when you're getting this help now, you're better able to identify, you know, what's going on, and you're better able, not only you, but your husband and your other children, y'all could better know how to deal with her, or how to make the necessary adjustments in order to make her comfortable, so that, you know, if she's, you know, hitting people all the time, it's just because she doesn't know the proper way to communicate. And that's what Asperger's essentially is. It's kind of more or less a deficit in social and emotional development. So children are extremely brilliant, but they just don't know how to communicate effectively, and as a result, they're going to act out, you know. So, you know, I talked to her. I could really see like the fear in her face. I could see it, like her face she literally looked like she was about to cry. However, at the same time, she was relieved, you know, that it's not like a bad and fearful thing as it sounds, you know. And, you know, whatever is going on with your child, you know, you just have to, you know, be honest with yourself, and just just stay out of denial if possible. Just get the help, you know, because you're going to do a disservice to your child. You're going to do a disservice to your child when, you know, you don't get them the proper help, and when you don't become aware so that you can help your child or do things that's you know, beneficial to their development, you know. So if you have, because I know that this could be a sensitive topic for most, but and like I said, I don't like sharing on Facebook all the time, because I don't want, you know, because some people on here actually know my children, and I don't want them to look at my child any differently. But at the same token, I want to help some parents out here, because like, I know how it is to be in denial, or matter of fact, I really wasn't in too much denial. It was kind of the people around me that were more so in denial and blaming me, saying I was a bad parent, and saying I was doing this wrong and that wrong. And, you know, like, I had to like really, really tune out the noise and get my child the help that he needed. And I'm very happy, I'm very blessed that, you know, I did, because he's thriving. He's doing phenomenal. Like, they're ready to put him in an inclusion program next year if they could just take the behavior piece off.